The day the world ended, I was fixing a fence. That's how it always is, I think. Not with sirens or speeches or the sky cracking open. Just another job on a long list. Hands sore, sun beating down, the smell of dry grass and rusted wire. I remember thinking I'd finish before lunch if the post cooperated. It didn't. My farm sits 3 hours inland from the coast, a spread of grazing paddocks, a weathered farmhouse, and a red tin barn that's older than I am. I inherited it from my father, who inherited it from his. Generations of stubborn men who believed land could outlast anything if you worked it hard enough. I believed that too, right up until the radio went dead. At first, I thought it was just reception. The old Utes antenna had been dodgy for years. I slapped the dashboard, twisted the dial, listened to static swallow the morning news. No weather. No talkback, no cricket scores. Just a hiss, like the world inhaling. I shut the engine off and listened. The cattle were restless, lowing in uneven bursts, hooves shifting against dirt. Birds had gone quiet. That should have been my first warning. Birds never shut up out here. I finished the fence anyway. Habit is a powerful thing. When your whole life is measured in chores, you keep moving even when something feels off. By the time I headed back toward the house, the sun was climbing and my shirt was soaked through. Inside, the farmhouse smelled like dust and old timber. I poured a glass of water, turned on the television, and waited for the picture to settle. It never did. The screen flickered, froze, then went black. Power was still on, the lights worked, but every channel was the same. I switched to the emergency band on the radio. Nothing. No test tone. No calm voice telling me everything was under control. That's when my phone buzzed. Not a call, a message from my sister, Emma. They're attacking people. I don't know what's happening. Lock your doors. I called her back immediately, straight to voicemail. I called again, and again, then Mum, then anyone whose number I still had saved. Every call failed. Outside, a distant gunshot cracked the air. I stood frozen in the doorway, heart hammering, staring across the paddocks toward the tree line. That sound didn't belong here. No neighbors close enough. No hunting season. Then I saw movement on the dirt road. At first, I thought it was a drunk. A man, staggering, arms loose at his sides, head lolling. He tripped, fell to his knees, then stood again like the ground had rejected him. As he came closer, I saw the blood. Not a little. Soaked into his shirt, down his face. His eyes were wrong, unfocused, like they weren't seeing anything at all. I shouted, "Hey, you all right?" He didn't respond, didn't slow, just kept coming. I grabbed the shotgun from behind the door, Dad's old one. I'd kept it more out of respect than need, loaded it with shaking hands, and stepped onto the porch. "Stop!" I yelled. He kept walking. When he was 10 meters away, I saw his jaw hanging loose, teeth red and broken. I pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening. The man's chest exploded backward, and he fell hard into the dirt. I stood there, gasping, waiting for the echo to fade. Then he started to move, slowly, dragging himself forward with one arm. No scream, no pain, just purpose. I fired again. This time, I aimed for the head. Silence followed. Real silence. The kind that presses in on your ears. I didn't sleep that night. By sundown, I'd barricaded the doors with furniture and dragged the freezer across the back entrance. I sat at the kitchen table with the shotgun across my lap, listening to the radio hiss and the wind scrape at the windows. Sometime after midnight, screams drifted in from far away. Not one, many. They rose and fell like a broken chorus, carried across the fields. I don't know how long I listened before they stopped. Morning came gray and wrong. Smoke rose on the horizon where the highway ran. I climbed the silo ladder for a better look and saw vehicles abandoned at odd angles, doors open, some still burning. Shapes moved among them. Too many. I understood then that whatever this was, it wasn't local. It wasn't going away. The farm had always been my whole world. Suddenly, it felt like a lifeboat. I took stock like Dad taught me. Food, months if rationed. Water, rain, tanks, bore pump if the power held. Weapons, shotgun, rifle, tools, fencing, space, distance. Most importantly, time. I buried the man I'd shot at the edge of the paddock. Didn't feel right leaving him for the cattle. I didn't say a prayer. Didn't know what he was anymore. By afternoon, the first of them reached my fences. They came in 2s and 3s, drawn by sound, maybe smell. They pressed against the wire, clawing, snarling, their strength uneven but relentless. I learned quickly. The fence would hold for now, but not forever. That night, I made a decision that would shape everything that came after. I wasn't leaving. If the world was ending, it was going to end around me, on soil my family had bled into, behind walls I built with my own hands. This farm would either keep me alive or become my grave. And as the moans drifted across the dark fields, I began planning for war. The first week taught me that panic wastes energy. I woke before dawn every day, nerves jangling, ears straining for movement. The dead zombies were sluggish in the cool mornings. They gathered along the fences in loose clusters, hands tangled in wire, heads cocked as if listening for a sound only they could hear. They didn't sleep. They didn't leave. That meant the fences were temporary. I walked the perimeter with binoculars, marking weak points with red tape, old posts, sagging wire, areas where erosion had loosened the soil. The farm was big, too big to defend entirely, so I chose a core zone: the farmhouse, barn, silo, and the nearest paddocks. Everything else became expendable land. It hurt more than I expected, letting fields go, watching grass grow wild where cattle once grazed. Dad would have hated that. But Dad was dead, wherever the dead went now, and sentiment wouldn't keep my throat intact. I reinforced the fences with scrap metal, welded sheets scavenged from machinery, even dragged old tractors into place as barricades. It was ugly work, loud work. Every hammer strike echoed like a dinner bell. They came faster after that. The sound drew them in from farther away, ragged figures stumbling out of the trees, crawling up from drainage ditches, some so decomposed they moved like collapsing puppets. I learned the smell of them carried on the wind before I ever saw them. The first time one got through, I nearly lost everything. It happened at dusk. I was welding a sheet onto the western fence when the generator sputtered and died. The sudden quiet was wrong. Too quiet. I turned just in time to see the wire sag inward. One of the posts snapped with a crack like a rifle shot. They poured through not dozens, but enough. 5, 6, hands grasping, teeth snapping. I ran. The farmhouse door slammed behind me as fingers scraped at my heels. I fired through the window until my shoulder went numb. When it was over, the yard was still again, bodies tangled in wire and dirt. I sat on the kitchen floor, shaking, shotgun empty, the realization settling like a stone in my gut. One mistake, that's all it took. That night, I changed tactics. Noise discipline, movement schedules, silent tools when possible. I stopped thinking of the dead as enemies and started thinking of them as weather. Predictable, dangerous. Something you prepare for, not fight head on unless you have to. I dug trenches, not deep ones time and strength wouldn't allow, but enough to trip, slow, funnel. I hammered spikes through planks and angled them outward along choke points. I learned quickly that even a creature without fear avoids pain if it can. More importantly, I learned to kill efficiently. Headshots only, melee when possible. The rifle stayed clean. The shotgun became a last resort. I fashioned spears from rebar and fence posts. Crude, but effective. The first time I pushed one through a skull at arm's length, I vomited afterward. By the third time, I didn't. Loneliness crept in when the work slowed. No voices on the radio. No helicopters overhead. Nights stretched long and empty, broken only by the distant moans drifting across the paddocks like fog. I talked to myself more than I should have. Commentary on tasks, old memories spoken aloud just to hear something human. Emma's message replayed in my head constantly. Lock your doors. I didn't know if she'd made it. Some nights I convinced myself she had. Other nights, I buried her beside the stranger at the fence line. I stopped sleeping in the house after I heard pounding on the walls at 3 a.m. Instead, I moved into the barn loft. Higher ground, fewer access points. I ran a rope ladder I could pull up behind me and set bells, actual cowbells, on trip lines below. Primitive, but effective. The dead weren't subtle. One afternoon, while scavenging tools from the far shed, I heard a sound that didn't belong. A voice. Hello? I froze. Every instinct screamed trap. The dead didn't talk. Not words. Not like that. Is anyone there? The voice called again. Female, hoarse, afraid. I peeked around the shed corner, rifle raised. She stood just beyond the fence, hands lifted, eyes darting everywhere at once. Mid-30s, maybe. Dirt-streaked face, a deep gash wrapped crudely on her forearm. No visible bite marks. I saw the fences, she said quickly. I saw you moving. I'm not infected. I swear. The dead stirred behind her, drawn by her voice. I had seconds. Run, I said. Now. To the gate. Don't stop. She hesitated. You'll let me in? If you make it, I said. She ran. 3 zombies lunged from the tree line. I dropped 2. The third grabbed her backpack and dragged her down. She screamed a raw, tearing sound that sliced through me. I fired, missed, fired again, hit. She scrambled up, sobbing, and bolted through the gate as I slammed it shut behind her. We collapsed on opposite sides of the yard, gasping. Her name was Lara. She'd been holed up in a service station until the fuel ran out and the walls came down. She'd walked for 2 days, following fences, avoiding roads. She didn't ask questions. She didn't beg. Trust came slowly. We slept in shifts, ate separate meals at first, but 2 sets of hands changed everything. Repairs that took me days took hours. Watches grew shorter. For the first time since the world fell apart, the nights felt survivable. The dead kept coming. But now, when I looked across the fields, I didn't see an ending. I saw a future that needed defending. And somewhere beyond the fences, something worse was moving. Something smart enough to wait. We just didn't know it yet. If the dead were weather, the living were storms. It started with smoke. Thin at first, a gray thread rising beyond the northern paddocks, then thicker, darker, fed by something more deliberate than an accident. Lara saw it first from the silo platform and went still in a way that told me everything before she spoke. That's not a house fire, she said. We watched in silence as the plume grew. Whoever it was wasn't hiding. Smoke like that was a beacon. Either they didn't care who saw them, or they wanted to be seen. Both options were bad. By then, the farm had begun to look less like a place of work and more like a defensive position. The fences stood reinforced with welded scrap and angled planks. Trenches cut lines through the earth like scars. The barn loft had become our sleeping quarters, with supplies hoisted up in crates and a clear line of sight over the yard. Lara adapted faster than I expected. She was observant, careful, and didn't flinch at blood. She never talked about her family. I never asked. In this world, the past was a liability. That afternoon, we heard engines. Not one, several. The sound rolled across the fields, low and hungry. Vehicles, old ones, judging by the cough and rattle moving slow but purposeful. They stopped just beyond the northern fence. I counted 6 people. They didn't approach right away. They stood near their vehicles, pointing, talking. One of them laughed. The sound carried too clearly. "Stay low," I muttered. Through the binoculars, I saw rifles, not slung for travel, carried ready. That made my stomach tighten. Scavengers? Maybe. Or something worse. They didn't try the gate. Instead, one of them fired a shot into the air. The dead responded immediately. From the tree line, the ditches, the long grass figures emerged, drawn by sound like moths to flame. The group backed away, calm, practiced, letting the zombies shamble toward the fence. "They're testing us," Lara whispered. The wire bowed under the sudden pressure. Hands clawed, teeth snapped. The scavengers watched, measuring. Then one of them shouted, "You got good fences. Bet you got good food, too." I didn't answer. After a long moment, they left engines roaring, laughter fading into the distance, leaving us with the mess. We spent the next hour clearing the fence, working fast and quiet. That night, neither of us slept. "They'll come back," Lara said finally. "I know." The question wasn't if, it was how many. We changed everything. The gate was reinforced with a dead tractor welded sideways. Sightlines were adjusted to avoid silhouettes at dawn and dusk. We buried supplies in cache pits in case the house fell. I showed Lara the rifle range Dad had taught me. She learned quickly, too quickly. 2 days later, the storm hit. They came at sunrise, 8 of them this time, spread out, coordinated. One circled wide to the east, drawing walkers with noise. Another tried to cut the fence. I fired a warning shot into the dirt near their feet. "Leave," I shouted. "There's nothing here worth dying for." A man with a red bandana stepped forward, rifle raised but not aimed. He smiled like we were old friends. "Everything's worth dying for," he said. "Question is, who?" They opened fire. Bullets punched through metal, splintered wood. One clipped the barn wall inches from my head. The dead surged again, confused by the noise. The firefight was chaos, gunshots, moans, shouts. I dropped one of them at the fence line. Lara hit another as he climbed the tractor barrier. He fell screaming into the trench and didn't get back up. But they were pushing, pressing, testing every weakness. Then one of them did something smart. They lit the field. Dry grass went up fast, flames racing toward the western fence. Smoke poured in thick, choking waves. Visibility dropped. The dead didn't care. We did. "Barn!" Lara yelled. "If it spreads." I made a decision that burned worse than the fire. I opened the inner gate. Zombies poured through, redirected by the trenches and noise, surging straight toward the attackers. Panic replaced confidence instantly. Gunfire turned wild. Screams rose as the dead closed in. One man tried to run. Lara put him down. Another went under, dragged, screaming into the grass. The red bandana man locked eyes with me through the smoke. Rage, fear, something like respect. Then a zombie took him from behind. The fire burned out by noon. Blackened earth. Bodies everywhere, dead and re-dead tangled together. The smell lingered for days. We survived. But the cost came later. That night, as we checked wounds, Lara went pale. She unwrapped her forearm. The gash was deeper than before, ragged, teeth marks clear in the flesh. "I didn't feel it," she whispered. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. She asked me to stay with her. I did. By morning, she was gone. I buried her beside the fence, marking the spot with a simple cross of scrap wood. The farm was quieter after that, too quiet. The living had found me, and they'd proven something far more dangerous than the dead ever could be. I was no longer invisible. After Lara died, I stopped counting days. Time had become elastic, stretching thin in the quiet hours, snapping tight during moments of violence. I worked because stopping meant thinking, and thinking led back to the look in her eyes when she knew. Not fear, acceptance, like she'd already made peace with the world ending and was just tired of fighting it. I moved her grave farther from the fence line the next morning, not for sentiment, for safety. The dead were drawn to places of death, and I wasn't about to let her rest become another weak point. The scavengers didn't return. That worried me more than if they had. People like that didn't give up territory easily. They regrouped, they learned, and now they knew the farm was defended and valuable. I doubled patrols, slept lighter, ate less. My reflection in the barn mirror looked like a stranger, eyes sunken, beard wild, movements sharp and economical. I'd lost weight, lost softness, lost the last pieces of the man who used to worry about fence posts and weather forecasts. The dead kept coming, but differently now. Not in waves, not drawn by noise. They drifted in alone or in pairs, as if pushed by something unseen. Sometimes I'd spot one standing motionless at the edge of a paddock, head tilted toward the farmhouse, not moving for hours. Watching. I didn't like that. One afternoon, while clearing a fallen tree near the southern boundary, I found tracks that didn't belong to the dead. Boot prints. Fresh. Careful. Someone had been close enough to study the defenses without being seen. That night, I heard a whistle. Low, short, human. I killed the lights and waited, rifle steady against the loft railing. The sound came again, farther away this time, then once more to the east. Signals. They weren't attacking yet. They were mapping me. I considered leaving. The thought surprised me with how tempting it was. The farm was strong, but strength attracted attention. If I slipped out at night, took the ute, headed inland or deeper bush, maybe I could disappear again. But the farm wasn't just shelter anymore. It was proof. Proof that something could still be held, that the dead didn't automatically win, that people like Lara hadn't died for nothing. So I stayed. The turning point came with the rain. A week-long downpour turned trenches into mud traps and softened the ground around the fences. The dead slipped, fell, piled up in grotesque heaps. I spent days clearing them, burning bodies to keep disease down. The smoke rose thick and black. And that's when I saw the lights. At night, far off, moving. Not fires, flashlights, controlled, sweeping arcs. They were back. I pulled back to the barn and waited. No shots this time, no taunts, just observation. The dead wandered aimlessly between us, ignored by both sides like debris on a battlefield. Just before dawn, a voice carried across the wet fields. "You defend well," it called. Different man, older, calm. "We're not here to fight." I didn't answer. "We lost people last time," the voice continued. "You did too. That's how this world works now. But we could do better together." "Come talk," he said. "No guns." I laughed despite myself. It came out harsh, broken. "You want to talk? You do it from where you stand." A pause. Then footsteps. Slow. Careful. A man emerged from the mist, hands visible, rifle slung across his back. Late 40s, maybe. Beard streaked with gray, eyes sharp but tired. "My name's Cole," he said. "We're building something, a settlement, stronger than this." I gestured to the fences, the barricades, the silent dead beyond. "Looks strong enough to me." "For now," he said. "But you're alone. You won't be forever." He didn't threaten. He didn't need to. "We need land like this," Cole went on. "Water, food, defensible ground. You can be part of it, or you can be absorbed by it. And if I say no?" He met my gaze steadily. "Then someone else will say yes later." He turned and walked back into the fog. They left again after that. No attack, no pressure. Just certainty. The dead changed after that. They started coming in clusters again, but not randomly. They funneled towards specific points, weak points, places I'd repaired recently, places someone might have pointed out. I killed dozens every day, then hundreds. My arms ached constantly. My hands shook when I tried to sleep. One night, I woke to silence. I climbed the silo ladder and scanned the fields. They were gone. Every last one. That's when the gate exploded inward. The blast ripped metal free, threw me back hard against the railing. Smoke filled the yard. Gunfire erupted, immediately disciplined, controlled. They'd used the dead as cover, cleared them away first. I returned fire, dropping 2, maybe 3, but they were already inside the perimeter. Smoke grenades rolled across the dirt. Shapes moved fast and low. I retreated to the barn, barricaded the loft, and waited. The fighting lasted minutes, felt like hours. When it ended, the yard burned. Cole stood below the loft, megaphone in hand. "You fought well," he called. "Come down. It's over." I looked at the farm, my father's land, Lara's grave, the fences that had held back the end of the world for months. Then I looked at the fuel barrels stacked along the barn wall. I made my choice. I had planned for this. Not for Cole, not for his men, but for the moment when the farm stopped being mine. The barrels were old diesel and fertilizer leftovers from years ago, forgotten because I never needed them. I'd stacked them along the barn's western wall months earlier, telling myself it was just smart storage. Deep down, I think I always knew. If they took the farm, they wouldn't take it intact. I kicked the ladder loose and dropped back into the loft, coughing as smoke thickened. Shouts echoed below. Boots on dirt, metal scraping. They were moving fast, confident now. I poured fuel along the loft floor, hands steady in a way that surprised me. Fear had burned out, replaced by something colder, clearer. Through the gaps in the boards, I saw Cole step into the barn, megaphone lowered. He looked around, assessing, already claiming it in his mind. "Don't do it," he called up. "You're smarter than this." I struck the flare. The light bloomed bright and violent. Heat kissed my face. I didn't hesitate. I dropped it. The fire raced faster than I expected. The loft went up in a roar, flames tearing across fuel-soaked wood. Men shouted below, panic now, real and raw. I ran. I hit the ground hard and rolled, came up sprinting toward the silo as the explosion hit behind me. The blast threw debris across the yard, a wave of heat and pressure that knocked me flat. The barn became a furnace. Ammo cooked off in sharp cracks. Fuel barrels ruptured. The roof collapsed inward in a screaming cascade of sparks and fire. Cole's settlement dreams went up with it. I didn't look back. I slipped through a drainage culvert I'd widened weeks earlier and vanished into the far paddocks as chaos swallowed the farm. Gunfire chased me, blind and furious, but the smoke covered my escape. By nightfall, I was deep in the tree line, soaked, exhausted, alive. I watched the farm burn until the flames died down to embers. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. I didn't have the luxury of grief anymore. Survival meant movement. I traveled light, rifle, pack, water, a few days of food. I avoided roads, followed creeks, slept in short bursts. The dead were thicker out here, but less concentrated, manageable. 2 days later, I found the settlement. Cole hadn't been lying. It sat in a shallow valley, ringed by shipping containers stacked 3 high, welded and reinforced, watchtowers at the corners, smoke rising from cook fires, order, structure, people. I counted at least 40. I could have walked away, disappeared into the bush, let the world rot without me. But then I saw the cages. They were near the outer wall wire pens filled with the dead, zombies, some freshly turned, some barely moving. Weapons. They were using them the same way Cole had used my fences. Noise, pressure, direction. I stayed hidden for a day, watching, learning. That night, I followed a patrol out and took one of them quietly. He never saw me. I took his radio, his map, his access card. The settlement had weaknesses. Any structure did. I waited for the storm. It came in the form of a horde. Something big had shifted the dead migration. Fire, chance, hundreds of them pressed down from the hills, drawn by light and noise. The settlement went into full alarm. Gates closed. Men scrambled. They rolled the cages forward. The dead surged. That's when I struck. I cut the power to the eastern wall first. Then the southern gate hydraulics. Confusion rippled through the compound like a dropped plate. I moved fast, silent, purposeful. Every step had weight now, not just survival, but intent. I found Cole near the command tower, shouting orders into a radio that screamed static back at him. He saw me and froze. I wondered, he said softly. This ends, I replied. He shook his head. You don't understand. This is the future. People need control. People need humanity, I said, and shot him. The shot was lost in the chaos. I opened the inner gates. The dead flooded in. I ran. By dawn, the valley was quiet again. Smoke drifted low. The walls stood, but everything inside them was broken. The dead wandered aimlessly among the ruins. I never went back. Weeks later, I found another farm, smaller, damaged, empty. I fixed a fence, planted seeds, built quietly. The world was still ending, but I'd learned something important. It wasn't about holding ground forever. It was about knowing when to burn it down and when to start again. Years later, the world is quieter. Not peaceful, just settled into its scars. The dead still roam, but they move like ghosts now, thin, brittle, more memory than threat. Time rots everything, even monsters. I deal with them the same way I deal with storms or droughts. Preparation, patience, respect. The farm I keep now isn't marked on any map. It sits between low hills and a river that never stopped flowing, even when everything else did. The house is small. The fences are modest but strong. I don't build tall walls anymore. Walls attract attention. Instead, I build space, distance, silence. I'm not alone. There are 12 of us. Enough to share watches, enough to lose without collapsing, too few to become something ugly. Children grow up fast now. They learn how to tell the dead from the living by the way they move. They learn how to stay quiet. They learn how to plant and harvest and mend. They don't remember the world before. That's a mercy. Sometimes, at night, when the wind moves through the grass just right, I think of Laura, of my father, of the farm that burned. I don't regret it. Fire was the price of survival. Every spring, I walk the perimeter alone. Not because I don't trust the others, but because some rituals are personal. I check fences. I touch the soil. I listen. I carry an old habit from another life, another farm, another man. On one of those walks, I find a scarecrow that isn't mine. It stands at the edge of the southern field, crude but deliberate, a warning or a greeting. I leave it standing. Somewhere out there, others are surviving the same way I am, quietly, carefully, learning, finally, that domination isn't the same thing as strength. At dusk, I return to the house. A fire burns in the hearth. Someone is laughing inside, soft, genuine, unafraid. I set my rifle by the door. The world didn't end. It changed. And for the first time in a very long time, I believe it might keep going.